Florida got the red tsunami. So I think if you're out there and you're saying, okay, we were expecting a red wave, I didn't see a single poll that ever had DeSantis winning by 20, Buck.
Nope.
He exceeded every possible expectation in Florida. I think yesterday we were talking, I said he might win by 15, and that was the highest number poll we had seen with DeSantis favored. So what is staggering to me, and this is the positive side is, and we saw this certainly early in the party that we were having, and I think a lot of people in the Biden White House saw the numbers that were coming out of Florida because they get it out so quickly. We got the red tsunami in Florida.
It is Wednesday, November 9th, the day after the election. We've got a lot to discuss with you here on Clay and Buck today. We have seen most of, certainly not all of the results. And let's just put it out there right now. It is not what we were hoping for. It was not what the polls indicated as a red wave. And because we still don't know the final outcome here for the Senate or the House as we speak to you right now, it's very tough to give an assessment as to exactly where this falls and what happened last night. It is likely, let's just start with this one. And Clay and I mean, we were texting we had a party last night, which was fun. There was fun.
Laura described it, my wife, as the equivalent of going to the Super Bowl party when the team that loses the Super Bowl has the Super Bowl. Now,
so I mean,
maybe a little bit aggressive.
She's not wrong. She's not wrong. So let's dive into a few of the. Let's take stock of where we are because there's an enormous shift, I think, in perception for where this country is politically that is just filtering in right now. I want to start with this. I thought it was going to be a much stronger night. Clay thought it was going to be a much stronger night. In fact, I don't really know anybody who didn't think it would be a very good to even fantastic night for the GOP, and here's why. We had said polls had been wrong in the past. They had been wrong in favor of Democrats in the past. So it felt like there was a bias, a journalistic bias, or similar to a journalistic bias with polling where it always favors the Democrats. And so we had said on this show in the last couple of weeks, unless the polls for the first time in the last 20 years dramatically favored Republicans versus reality, this is going to be an amazing night. Unfortunately, the polls dramatically favored Republicans, and we saw how this played out. There is so much to unpack here. So polling had a terrible night.
The betting markets
are
not a good night.
Preposterous. They had no idea what was going on. They were wrong on everything. The pollsters, preposterous. Totally wrong. Now, we some places you'll say, okay, well, it was up 2 points or up 1 point, fine. There were races where the Republican was supposed to be up 6 points, 8 points. I mean, dramatically, and all of a sudden, it's either a dead heat to this moment in time, or it's something that just completely went in the opposite direction. But let's start with the positive.
Yeah, I like that. Let's
start with the positive because my friends, the two big positive notes that I have in my head with all of this. Ron DeSantis, the governor of Florida, came out early last night because they had all the votes counted because it's Florida. He won by 20 points in Florida.
Yeah.
This is almost a miracle. Now, it is a miracle built through the sweat, hard work, and genius of DeSantis, his team, and what has happened in Florida. But Florida is red. And what DeSantis did in that state is incredible. And it's just by getting it done, getting the results. That's great, Clay. Congress looks likely, the House of Representatives looks likely to be Republican majority, but a slim majority, and it is not over yet. We do not know the final dispensation of the Senate, likely to come down to a runoff in Georgia, so we might not even know for another month. Clay, we're going to be talking about this for hours.
Yes.
What's your biggest? What was keeping you up late last night? What keeps you focused, and what keeps you feeling like there's a future that we could actually look forward to?
What kept me up was the negative. So I'll tell people why I couldn't sleep last night in a moment. But let me build on your Ron DeSantis analysis. 20-point win in Florida. He won in 2018 by 30,000 votes, Buck. Here are some of the numbers according to exit polling of who he won. Hispanic voters, he got 57% of the vote. Women voters, he got 52%. Suburban voters, 58%. And independent voters, 52%. Couple of other data points here. His share of, for instance, the Puerto Rican vote went from 34% of the electorate in 2018 to 55% in 2022. And we have a lot of listeners in South Florida, flipped Miami-Dade red in a way that truly has not happened ever. Now, Jeb Bush back in 2002 won Miami-Dade, but DeSantis won it by more. Marco Rubio won. The entire Republican Party, there is not, I believe I'm correct in this, a statewide elected Democrat in the entire state of Florida, which has never happened
What
before.
you saw last night was the crowning, the culmination of the state of Florida as the heartland of the GOP today. Now, a good result in Texas with Abbott ahead of Beto by 10 points.
Yep.
So that was strong. Comfortable win. But along the border, there were some areas of particularly of Hispanic predominant voters who went Democrat, which was a big surprise. Mayra Flores did not win her congressional race. So there were a couple of things that were not – it wasn't Florida and Texas last night. That's the best way I can put it. And Florida, we saw those numbers. It looked like there had to be a mistake, Clay, when that number came in of 20%.
Yeah, look, Florida got the red tsunami. So I think if you're out there and you're saying, okay, we were expecting a red wave, I didn't see a single poll that ever had DeSantis winning by 20, Buck.
Nope.
He exceeded every possible expectation in Florida. I think yesterday we were talking, I said he might win by 15, and that was the highest number poll we had seen with DeSantis favored. So what is staggering to me, and this is the positive side is, and we saw this certainly early in the party that we were having, and I think a lot of people in the Biden White House saw the numbers that were coming out of Florida because they get it out so quickly. We got the red tsunami in Florida. And so I think for everybody out there who is looking and who is disappointed, focusing on the positive, Florida delivered what we expected to see across the whole country. And I tweeted out at some point, we need to make America like Florida. Okay, so it's a wildly positive night for Ron DeSantis. I think if you are of the opinion, as you and I have been for some time, that the 2024 presidential contest in the Republican Party is eventually going to come down to two 800-pound gorillas, Donald Trump and Ron DeSantis throwing punches, grappling with each other, rolling around everywhere. To me, this was a really good night for DeSantis and not a great night for Trump. The other thing I would say that's a positive, and this actually surprised me, Buck, New York. Now, Lee Zeldin didn't win, but the amount of down ticket strength that we are seeing in New York in terms of congressional seat pickups, the head of the DCCC lost in a Biden plus 10 district in New York. That is, we got the kind of the red tsunami, red wave in New York. We got it in Florida. We didn't get it very many other places, and that's kind of staggering to me.
New York very well may, and this is going to depend on, look, we don't have final results. So we're assessing, to use a football analogy, it's like they're still reviewing up in the box, and we're saying, well, this is how the game went.
We're looking at game film after the third quarter, and we still don't know how the fourth quarter plays out for sure.
It's not clear who has Senate control. As we speak to you, the answer is we don't know. Who has House control? The answer is probably 75% Republican, but it's not 100%. So that's the place, though, where I think there was massive underperformance relative to what the polling was showing and what we were hoping for was in a lot of those key governor's races. Minnesota, the Democrat won. Have they called Oregon yet against Strazen?
I don't know if it's been called, but she looks like she's going to lose.
She looks like she's just going to lose. In obviously Michigan, Whitmer won. New York, Hochul won. Those are crushing because, especially with Whitmer and Hochul, there was the one opportunity for accountability for the COVID madness. I don't think we're going to be speaking that much in the weeks and months ahead about the craziness of lockdowns and all the rest of it because libs don't care. Triple mask them, give them 15 shots, make their kids have massive learning loss. You know, make them mask up on. They like it. They like the abuse. They're fine with it. They have no problem with it. Back to your New York point, though, and back to where we are with the House. Hochul won. Now, Zeldin did better than any Republican in the governor's race at least 10, 15 years, I think.
Probably in the 21st century, right?
Well, sir, I'm trying to think when Pataki, when was Pataki out?
Won.
Last year Pataki would be when. But he did better than any Republican in a long time. So credit to him for running. I mean, this is like running in California almost. I mean, you are 2-1 underdog there. So Lee ran a good campaign. You might have 4 or 5 members of Congress, though, in super tight congressional districts in New York State that the GOP picks up, and that won't probably be the absolute difference between Republican control, but it's going to be a major part of whatever that, those 4 or 5 seats that could go red are going to be really critical to the Republican majority. And look, assuming that we're heading for one, and we feel pretty confident, but look, Clay, how can we feel confident? You feel confident in anything right now? Look what happened in Arizona. We're going to talk more about this, the mess that's going on there. And you and I, we live in different parts of the country. We're talking to people everywhere. But ultimately, the only way to really get a sense in some of these narrow elections is the data.
Yep.
That's all we've got.
Yep.
You bring a company to us. You say, show us the 10K. Show us the balance statement. Show us. If all the numbers are crap, you're not going to know if this is a good company to invest in or not. And the numbers were widely trash going into this election in terms of the polls and certainly the gambling markets.
Okay, so Florida, New York, super positive. There are certainly other stories going on throughout the country that are positive. We're still waiting to see what's going to happen in Nevada. To update everybody, Adam Laxalt is up by around 3 points. They say 75% is in. Looks like our friend Ron Johnson, we worked as hard as we could in Wisconsin. Looks like he has won another.
Those Ron John calls in here. But remember what we told you? We said it was going to be super tight. We said every little bit, pedal to the metal. That Ron John race came down to the wire.
And we're going to get him for 6 more years, which is going to be pretty fantastic. It looks like Herschel is going to be in a runoff against Warnock. We're basically reliving 2020 all over again. And we'll see whether Kerry Lake, Blake Masters, the numbers still coming in Arizona, what exactly is going to happen in that state. But to your point, Buck, one of the challenges of assessing everything right now as we speak to you a little bit after noon on election, the day after the election, the postmortem, is we don't have all the data. So we gave you some positives there. When we come back, we'll start to talk about some of the negatives that are out there. And I'll just give you a tease. The fact that John Fetterman won in Pennsylvania, I could not sleep thinking if John Fetterman can be elected as a Senate candidate statewide, the man can't speak. He's in awful health. He is Bernie Sanders. We're in a really tough spot because that's not a candidate quality issue. He was the worst candidate of either major political party running for statewide race, I think, in 2020.
It is essential for us, and we'll do this coming back and more this hour, to understand how could John Fetterman have won in Pennsylvania, because this is what the Fetterman phenomenon of the worst candidate who's completely absurd being able to be a U.S. Senator goes right to the mindset of the modern Democrat Party. This is really what we have to unpack and dive into here, because this is what we're up against.